All right. So you wanted the rundown on how the U.S. and China actually stack up in the grand scheme of things. Well, we dug into some recent analyses, and I got to say, it's a real eye-opener.
Yeah.
We'll be covering their political systems, economies, military, tech scenes, even cultural vibes, and a whole lot more.
It's fascinating. These two global giants, right, always portrayed as rivals.
You're right.
But honestly, the reality is much more nuanced.
Oh, yeah.
They're deeply intertwined, economically and depolitically.
Yeah.
It's one of the most, consequential relationships on the world stage, really.
Okay, so let's unpack this, starting with their political systems.
Okay.
It's a stark contrast, right? U.S. with its democracy, China with its one-party system.
Yeah, the U.S. operates as a democratic republic, right?
Yeah.
With a system of checks and balances.
Right.
You have the executive branch, legislative, and judicial.
Yeah.
All designed to prevent, any one person or entity from having too much power.
Right.
The structure really emphasizes individual liberties and those democratic principles.
Yeah.
It allows for that diversity of viewpoints and political participation.
That's a far cry from how things work in China, where the Communist Party of China holds the reins.
Exactly. It's a one-party socialist state, right?
Right.
With centralized control. The Communist Party influences, well, nearly every aspect of life.
Yeah.
This model prioritizes, social harmony and economic development, but all under the guidance of the party.
Yeah.
So there's very little room for dissent or, opposition.
So how does this difference in political ideology play out in their economies?
Okay.
Because when we look at the numbers,
Yeah.
the U.S. seems to be ahead, right?
Well, for now, yeah.
Okay.
The U.S. currently boasts a larger GDP, around 25.5 trillion.
Wow.
But China's right behind them, roughly 18 trillion. And the gap is closing fast.
That's incredible, especially when you consider they've taken this very deliberate state-driven approach to economic development.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, from what I was reading, China is actually trying to shift towards domestic consumption now.
Yes.
It's like they're trying to depend less on exports and cultivate a stronger market within their own borders.
Yeah, it's a calculated move for sure.
Yeah.
As wages rise in China, they want to tap into that burgeoning consumer base.
Yeah.
This could have a massive impact on global trade.
Yeah.
Potentially lessening their reliance on Western markets.
Right.
And creating this more, self-sufficient economic engine.
Makes you wonder if this is like a sign of things to come, some kind of rebalancing of global economic power.
Yeah.
Now, let's switch gears to the military landscape.
Okay.
The U.S., obviously known for its massive defense spending, but you can't ignore China's modernization efforts.
Absolutely. The U.S. still has the world's largest defense budget.
Yeah.
A staggering $800 billion.
Wow.
China's at $290 billion.
Still a huge number.
Oh, for sure. But here's the thing.
Yeah.
China's investments are laser focused.
Okay.
They're really all about regional power and technological advancement.
Interesting.
They're developing, sophisticated weaponry, cyber capabilities, really reshaping that balance of power in Asia and beyond.
It's giving like arms race vibes, especially when you bring in the tech landscape.
Yeah.
The U.S. has been a leader for so long, but China's emerging as a serious competitor.
It's a fascinating race to watch, really.
Yeah.
The U.S., they still have a strong foothold in software development, aerospace technology, pharmaceuticals.
Yeah.
You've got giants like Google, Apple, Microsoft, names synonymous with American innovation. But on the other hand, you have China surging ahead in AI, 5G networks, and renewable energy technology.
Right.
Companies like Huawei and Tencent are really challenging the established order.
Yeah.
It's almost like they're providing this compelling alternative to the U.S. dominated tech landscape.
I almost feel like the U.S. is playing catch up in these specific sectors.
Yeah, there's definitely a shift happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, another point of comparison, demographics.
Okay.
U.S. population, about 334 million, boosted by a relatively high immigration rate.
Right.
China, completely different situation.
Okay.
Massive, 1.4 billion people, but a declining birth rate.
Wow, that's a huge difference.
Huge.
What are the long-term implications of those trends?
Well, for the U.S.,
Yeah.
immigration helps maintain a younger workforce, right?
Right.
and fuels economic growth.
Yeah.
But of course, it also presents challenges.
Sure.
Social and cultural integration, making sure that all works.
Of course.
China faces a rapidly aging population,
Right.
which could really strain their social safety net
Yeah.
and potentially hinder economic growth down the line.
It makes you wonder which model is more sustainable in the long run.
Yeah, big question.
It's clear that both countries are dealing with their own advantages and pitfalls. This brings us to global influence.
Okay.
And this is where things get really interesting.
The U.S. has held a prominent position on the world stage, right?
Right.
For a long time.
Yeah.
They have that network of alliances like NATO and considerable cultural influence, through media and entertainment.
For sure.
But China is actively working to expand its global footprint, primarily through economic initiatives like the Belt and Road Initiative.
Can you unpack that a bit for those who might not be familiar?
The Belt and Road Initiative is a massive infrastructure project.
Okay.
It aims to connect Asia, Europe, and Africa through this network of roads, railways, seaports.
It's ambitious.
Oh, it is. It's a strategic move by China to strengthen trade ties, secure access to resources, and ultimately reshape those global trade routes.
Interesting.
Projecting their influence across, multiple continents.
So while the U.S. has kind of historically relied on its military and its alliances, China's forging a new path.
Yeah.
They're leveraging economic clout, forging new trade partnerships. It's like they're crafting a new sphere of influence, almost a counterweight to the existing U.S.-led order.
It's a compelling strategy, that's for sure.
Yeah.
It's garnered both praise and criticism internationally.
Right.
It depends who you ask.
Now, education, the U.S. has always been known for those, prestigious universities, Harvard, MIT, places that emphasize innovation and a well-rounded liberal arts education.
Right.
How does China's approach to education compare?
Well, their system is known for being, very rigorous, STEM-focused, science, technology, engineering, math.
Right.
It's very competitive.
Yeah.
Heavy emphasis on standardized tests and rote learning.
Okay.
But they've also invested heavily in research and development.
Okay.
And their universities are steadily climbing those global rankings.
So while the U.S. has traditionally been seen as the leader in higher education and cutting-edge research, China's making moves to close the gap, establish itself as a major player.
Exactly. They recognize that the fostering intellectual capital and that technological prowess is really crucial for economic growth and global influence going forward.
It's almost like we're watching this high-stakes chess match play out, each side strategically maneuvering its pieces.
Yeah.
But it's not just about, economic and political power plays.
Right.
There's this whole other dimension, right?
Yeah.
Cultural influence.
Absolutely.
Which is a lot harder to quantify.
Much harder.
The U.S., often associated with individualism, freedom of expression, and a vibrant pop culture that's global through music, movies, entertainment.
It's a powerful form of soft power, that's for sure.
It is. It shapes perceptions and aspirations around the world.
Absolutely.
China, on the other hand, they place a greater emphasis on collectivism, societal harmony, and Confucian values, drawing on their rich cultural heritage.
Thousands of years of history.
Exactly. And they're getting better at leveraging that, their traditional arts, media, even cuisine, to kind of expand their own soft power and global appeal.
It's proving to be an effective strategy for sure.
Yeah.
Chinese cinema, television, finding larger audiences internationally.
Right.
Their cultural influence is definitely expanding.
It's fascinating, this interplay of cultural forces, right? Each trying to capture the hearts and minds of people across the globe.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's talk about the environment.
Okay.
Both countries have a pretty complicated track record here, haven't they?
It's a complex issue, no doubt.
Yeah.
The U.S. historically has had high carbon emissions, but there's this growing push for renewable energy and sustainability.
Right.
They also play a leading role in environmental research and technological innovation aimed at mitigating climate change.
Now, China, they're the world's largest emitter of carbon dioxide.
Right.
So they face a really unique set of challenges.
Yeah.
But here's the twist. They're also the world's biggest investor in renewable energy and electric vehicles.
It's a paradox, isn't it?
It really is.
They're contributing to the problem, but also actively trying to be part of the solution.
Yeah.
It highlights that balance, right?
Yeah.
Between economic development and environmental responsibility.
It's something every country's dealing with.
Oh, yeah. A global challenge.
Okay, let's talk about healthcare.
All right.
The U.S., we all know, it's notoriously expensive. Yeah. A private system. Mm-hmm. It's known for advanced technology, but it's plagued by these issues of access and affordability.
For sure.
China, on the other hand, has a public system.
Right.
And it's going through some major reforms right now.
It is.
To expand access and improve the quality of care.
Big undertaking.
It's a fascinating contrast in approaches.
Absolutely.
How to provide healthcare to a massive population.
Yeah.
Each with its own pros and cons. Finally, let's talk about trade.
Okay.
That's the arena where these two economic giants are probably most intertwined, right?
Probably.
The U.S. excels in service and high-tech industries, but relies heavily on imports,
right?
Especially from China.
Yeah.
For manufactured goods.
It's complex. That dependency creates a complex web of, economic interdependence.
Right. And China, often called the world's factory, has dominated manufacturing and exports for decades.
A long time.
But they're trying to shift their focus, right, towards domestic consumption.
Exactly.
Reduce their reliance on external markets.
It's a delicate balancing act. Yeah. They have to maintain that export prowess.
Right.
But also nurture their internal market.
Yeah.
Adapt to shifting global demand.
It's a big transition.
It is.
Could have huge consequences for the global economy.
Oh, absolutely.
So essentially we have these two economic powerhouses, each with its strengths and vulnerabilities, but ultimately tied together in this complex web of global trade. Their relationship, it's marked by competition, but also cooperation.
For sure.
It's a dynamic that makes their future trajectory all the more intriguing.
Absolutely.
What do you think? Should we take a closer look at some of the specific challenges and opportunities this relationship presents?
Absolutely. There's a lot more to unpack.
Okay, let's do it.
It's kind of a fascinating paradox, isn't it?
What do you mean?
You have these two global powerhouses, right?
Yeah.
Seemingly at odds on the world stage, but they're both grappling with remarkably similar internal pressures.
Okay, give me an example. What kind of pressures are we talking about?
Well, income inequality.
Okay.
It's a big issue in both the U.S. and China, albeit, manifesting in different ways.
Right.
In the U.S., you have that widening gap between the ultra-wealthy and the working class that's fueled, social unrest and political polarization.
And in China, even with all that economic progress, there's a stark rural-urban divide.
Absolutely.
Millions in rural areas are still struggling.
Yeah. They haven't really reaped the benefits of China's economic boom.
And this economic disparity, it kind of feeds into another challenge they both share.
Which is?
Political polarization.
Oh, absolutely.
In the U.S., it's that classic left versus right, Democrats versus Republicans.
Each side, dug into their ideologies.
But even in China, with its one-party system, there are factions within the Communist Party, right?
For sure.
Vying for power.
Absolutely. Each with their own vision for China's future.
It's a good reminder that even these seemingly monolithic systems, right? They have their own internal tensions and competing interests.
They do.
And those domestic political dynamics, they inevitably spill over into their foreign policy.
Of course, it all ties together.
So how does this internal political tug of war, how does that actually play out on the global stage?
So the U.S., with, its established alliances and military might, historically they've taken a more interventionist approach to foreign policy. Right. Often getting involved in conflicts around the world, sometimes as peacekeepers, sometimes more forceful.
China, they've traditionally been more cautious, focusing on economic diplomacy and soft power.
Right, preferring to exert influence through trade and cultural exchange.
Rather than military intervention.
Exactly.
But it seems like that might be changing.
You're picking up on that, huh?
Well, yeah, with initiatives like the Belt and Road, which we talked about earlier, those massive infrastructure projects, China's becoming more assertive, right?
They are.
Especially in regions like Asia and Africa. They see opportunities there, right?
Yeah, building partnerships, securing resources.
It's almost like they're positioning themselves to challenge the U.S.-led global order.
Right. Creating a new sphere of influence.
Right, that aligns with, their own interests and ambitions.
It's fascinating to watch, this power dynamic.
It is. And of course, both countries are dealing with the whole, uncharted waters of emerging technology.
Oh, absolutely. That's a big one.
And their impact on society, warfare, everything.
Yeah. Things like AI, automation, cyber warfare.
It's a whole new frontier.
It is.
With immense potential, but also potential peril.
Big time.
How each country chooses to develop and deploy these technologies, I mean, that's going to have ripple effects across the globe.
Absolutely. Their approach to these technological advancements, it's going to shape their trajectories, economies, security, their very way of life.
Another thing we should probably consider is how each country sees its role in the world.
Okay, yeah.
Its sense of, national identity.
Right.
How do their self-perceptions differ?
Well, the U.S. has long viewed itself as a champion of, democracy and freedom.
Right.
Often taking on a leadership role in global affairs.
Yeah.
Promoting its values, intervening in conflicts that it sees as threats to those values.
Right.
China, with its focus on economic development and what they call national rejuvenation, they often take a more, I'd say, pragmatic, maybe even self-interested approach, prioritizing its own growth and stability above all else.
And these different worldviews, I mean, they inevitably lead to friction points in relationships.
Yeah, take trade, for example. The U.S. has repeatedly accused China of, unfair trade practices leading to tariffs and trade wars.
Exactly, which creates tension.
Well, tons of it.
And economic uncertainty on both sides.
Absolutely. It's a lose-lose in a lot of ways.
And from China's perspective, I mean, they see these actions as attempts to contain their rise, to maintain American dominance,
In the global economy?
Yeah.
Just exacerbates those tensions.
It's like a tangled web of economic and geopolitical interests.
Yeah.
Fueled by, historical grievances and anxieties about the future.
Absolutely. It's complicated stuff.
And then there's the ever-thorny issue of human rights.
Right.
Can't forget about that. Further complicates their relationship, doesn't it?
For sure.
I mean, the U.S. frequently criticizes China's human rights record. They cite concerns about the Uyghurs, the suppression of dissent in Hong Kong, lack of political freedoms.
It's a constant point of tension.
And these criticisms are met with defiance from China.
Of course, they see it as interference in their internal affairs.
Right. And China, in turn, accuses the U.S. of hypocrisy. Classic. Pointing to issues like, racial injustice.
Police brutality, treatment of migrants.
They use these examples to deflect criticism.
And to undermine American moral authority on the world stage.
It becomes this battle of narratives with each side using human rights as this, political tool.
Absolutely.
So where does all of this leave us?
Well, that's the big question, isn't it?
Well, are we on some, inevitable collision course?
It's tempting to see it that way, right?
Yeah.
To fall into that trap of, simplistic narratives.
Right.
But the reality is, as with most things geopolitics, it's far more nuanced.
Okay.
While there's definitely potential for conflict, both the U.S. and China, they recognize that they need to cooperate on issues that, transcend national borders.
Like what kind of issues?
Like climate change.
Right.
Global pandemics. The threat of nuclear proliferation.
So it's not like a zero-sum game. It's not about one side winning and the other losing.
Okay.
Their relationship is this, complex interplay of competition and cooperation, shared interests and divergent values.
Right.
How they manage that balance, that's what's going to determine the shape of the 21st century.
One thing that's become really clear to me through all of this is how intertwined domestic politics are with their actions globally.
Oh, yeah.
It's like these internal pressures, these political dynamics, they're constantly shaping their foreign policy decisions.
It's crucial to understand that connection.
Give me an example.
Okay, so in the U.S., you have a range of political perspectives on China, right? Some advocate for a tough stance, emphasizing containment, decoupling of the economies,
Right.
even, suggesting a new Cold War.
Right. While others are arguing for engagement, for finding common ground,
Right.
recognizing the benefits of economic interdependence.
And the risks of escalating tensions.
And within China, you see similar debates.
Okay.
Some factions in the Communist Party, they're pushing for a more assertive, even aggressive foreign policy.
Right. Well, others favor a more,
Yeah.
cautious, pragmatic approach.
Exactly. Focused on stability, continued economic growth.
So it's not just a clash between two nations.
It's not.
It's also like a clash of ideologies and interest within each country.
Within each country.
And public opinion plays a role too, doesn't it?
Oh, huge.
I mean, there's a growing suspicion,
Yeah.
distrust of the other.
On both sides.
Of the U.S. and China.
Absolutely. You see it in the media.
Yeah.
Political rhetoric, social media even.
Right? And this animosity.
It's like a vicious cycle. Right.
Yeah.
Fueled by mistrust and misinformation.
It makes it even harder for policymakers
Absolutely.
to find common ground.
Yeah.
Pursue diplomatic solutions.
Just creates more barriers.
And all of this is happening against this backdrop of constant change, right?
Oh, yeah. The world's not standing still.
Like unpredictable events that could further destabilize things?
Absolutely. Think about it. A global pandemic.
Right.
A major financial crisis.
Yeah.
A regional conflict.
But any of these could.
Oh, yeah. They could disrupt the balance of power.
Yeah.
Lead to unintended consequences.
It's a reminder that we live in this complex, interconnected world.
Where even the most powerful nations, right? They're not immune to those external shocks.
It's a bit daunting.
It is, a little bit.
When you think about all the variables at play, all the potential triggers for escalation between these two superpowers.
And it just highlights the importance of, informed, nuanced dialogue.
Right.
We need to move beyond those simplistic narratives and really engage with the complexity
of the relationship.
Yeah.
Understand the motivations, the fears.
The aspirations, all of it.
You mentioned earlier that there are things we often overlook.
I did.
What else should we be paying attention to?
Well, one factor that often gets overshadowed is technology.
Okay.
The rapid pace of innovation, it's changing the very nature of power and competition.
In the 21st century.
Yeah, think about AI,
right.
quantum computing, biotechnology.
These are game changers.
Oh, they are. They have the potential to reshape the global landscape.
And both the U.S. and China, they're racing to harness these technologies.
Absolutely. They want to gain that strategic advantage.
So it's not just about who has the biggest army anymore.
It's not.
Or the strongest economy.
It's a new kind of arms race.
Right.
Where dominance is measured in, technological supremacy.
Okay, so who controls the algorithms? Who owns the data?
Those are the questions.
Who sets the standards?
Yeah, for the next generation of technology.
That's going to determine the balance of power.
It is.
And it's all happening against this backdrop of a changing global order.
Yeah, the rise of China, along with other emerging powers.
Right.
It's challenging the dominance of the U.S.
We're moving towards like a multipolar world.
We are.
Where power is more, diffuse, alliances are more fluid.
The old rules, they don't apply anywhere.
And that uncertainty creates risk. For the U.S., it means adapting.
To a world where it's not the sole superpower.
Right.
Where they need new partnerships, new ways to exert their influence.
And for China.
It's a chance to reshape the global order.
Okay.
To reflect their own interests.
Yeah.
Promote their own model of development, their vision for the future.
It's a high-stakes game.
Oh, it is.
With no clear winners or losers.
Nope, not yet anyway.
The only thing that's certain is that this relationship between the U.S. and China, it's going to be one of the most consequential,
absolutely,
one of the most fascinating to watch.
Definitely.
So if we zoom out to the bigger picture.
Okay. What are some key takeaways for our listener?
I think one of the most important is that we need to move beyond those simplistic narratives.
Right. The good versus evil.
Yeah, democracy versus authoritarianism.
Those frameworks,
they're too limiting.
They don't really capture the nuance.
They don't.
Both countries have their own internal contradictions.
Histories, cultural contexts.
They face their own unique challenges and opportunities.
Exactly. And we have to understand those complexities.
If we want to, engage in meaningful dialogue.
If we want to navigate this new global landscape effectively.
So it's not about picking sides, demonizing the other.
It's about engaging with the nuance.
recognizing the interconnectedness
of our world. Yeah.
It requires critical thinking, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
A willingness to challenge our own assumptions.
Yeah, and an appreciation for diverse perspectives.
It's about recognizing the humanity of those on the other side. Absolutely. Understanding their hopes, their fears, their aspirations.
It's easy to get caught up.
Oh, it is.
In the headlines, the political rhetoric.
Fear-mongering.
But we got to dig deeper.
We do.
Seek out those diverse perspectives. Engage in thoughtful dialogue.
That's where the real understanding lies.
It's how we break down barriers, build bridges.
Work towards a more peaceful, more just, more sustainable future.
For all.
Exactly.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
We've explored the U.S.-China relationship, the challenges, the opportunities.
The potential for conflict, the potential for cooperation.
Where do we go from here?
Well, I think it's important to move beyond just analysis.
Okay.
And start considering potential scenarios for the future.
Okay.
What happens if they continue on this path of confrontation?
Right.
What are the risks of, a new Cold War?
Yeah.
Or is there a possibility for a more cooperative relationship?
Right.
Where they manage their differences and work together.
On those shared challenges. Yeah. Those are some weighty questions. And honestly, a bit unnerving to think about.
Yeah.
It feels like we're at a crossroads.
I think we are.
The decisions these two make in the coming years, they're going to have ripple effects.
Oh, they will.
Across the world.
Absolutely.
It's going to shape the geopolitical landscape for generations to come.
It's a pivotal moment, definitely. And that's why these deep dives are so important.
Right.
It's about, empowering ourselves.
With knowledge, with understanding.
Exactly. So we can engage in these conversations.
Not just as, passive observers.
No, as informed citizens.
Right. Capable of thinking critically.
Exactly.
It's not about predicting the future, but more about equipping ourselves to navigate the complexities.
Right.
To ask the right questions.
Challenge assumptions.
Contribute to a more informed public discourse.
That's the goal.
Yeah, and I think something that often gets lost in all the, the geopolitical maneuvering, the economic, saber rattling is the human dimension.
Oh, for sure.
Of this relationship.
We're not talking about abstract forces here.
Right.
We're talking about real people's lives.
Yeah, people who are directly impacted by the decisions that their governments make.
Absolutely.
It's so easy to get caught up
in
the, the grand narratives, the statistics.
Yeah, more dynamics.
But we can't lose sight of the individual stories.
The human connections.
Yeah, the ones that transcend those political borders.
Exactly. Think about the students studying abroad, right? Experiencing different cultures, forming friendships.
That defy those nationalistic divides.
Right. Or families separated by immigration policies.
Longing for connection, for reunification.
Absolutely. And entrepreneurs collaborating across continents, right?
Building businesses, forging economic ties.
That benefit people on both sides.
These are the stories that remind us of our shared humanity. Of how interconnected our world really is.
Despite the political tensions, right? And economic rivalries.
They offer a glimmer of hope.
They do.
A reminder that even amidst all of this, geopolitical turmoil, there are these currents of human connection.
They run deep.
That remind us that cooperation and understanding, they're not just idealistic aspirations.
They're not.
They're essential.
Absolutely.
For a more peaceful and prosperous future.
For everyone.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into this, multifaceted world of U.S.-China relations, what's the one thing you want our listener to take away?
The most crucial insight.
Yeah.
I'd say embrace the complexity.
Okay.
Resist that urge to oversimplify.
Don't fall into those easy narratives.
Yeah, this is not a black and white, good versus evil situation.
It's so much more than that.
It's a tapestry.
Yeah.
Woven with, history, culture, economics, politics.
The hopes and dreams.
Of billions of people.
We need to acknowledge that both countries have strengths and weaknesses.
Admirable qualities and flaws.
Yeah.
Their relationship, it's not destined for inevitable conflict.
Or seamless harmony.
It's a dance, really.
Yeah.
Between competition and cooperation.
A balanced act.
Requires wisdom, restraint, and a willingness to engage with the nuance.
Yeah.
So the next time you see a headline about the U.S. and China, go beyond the surface.
Yeah.
Question the assumptions.
Seek out those alternative perspectives.
Dig deeper into the historical context.
The cultural nuances, the economic realities.
All of it.
Don't settle for, the easy sound bites.
Yeah, the polarized rhetoric.
Embrace the messiness.
the contradictions, the gray areas.
That's where the real understanding emerges.
It is.
And it's through that understanding that we can start to imagine and work towards a future where these two giants can coexist
peacefully,
still,
not just for their own benefit,
but for the betterment of humanity as a whole.
It's challenging, but it's hopeful.
It is.
And it starts with each of us engaging in thoughtful dialogue,
challenging our own biases,
seeking common ground,
even amidst all the complexity.
Absolutely.
So we'll leave you with a final thought.
Okay.
Given everything we've talked about today, how do you envision the future of this relationship?
Yeah, what choices can we make?
As individuals, as a global community.
To steer it towards a more, peaceful and prosperous path.
The future, like always, is unwritten.
It's up to all of us to shape it.
With wisdom, with courage.
And a commitment to understanding.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
We'll see you next time.